Also some
This edition of WeatherScope is sponsored by Midas Auto Systems Experts. What can we do for you today?
This is WeatherScope.
A storm system socking the southeast is moving up the coast, and it will bring heavy rains and high winds to the northeast, just in time for the afternoon rush hour. Good afternoon and welcome to WeatherScope. I'm Bob Stokes. For a complete update on the trouble spots, we turn now to Mike Bono in the Forecast Center.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Trouble spots indeed. We've had a storm that developed over the Gulf of Mexico, actually a complex low-pressure system for the last 2 nights, and now it's beginning to shape up in the mid-south and even redevelop along the Atlantic coast. Meanwhile, we have all kinds of advisories out. Let's take a look at the watches that are in effect, or the Weather Channel's areas to watch out for, let's say. In the deep south, still back to Mississippi and most of Tennessee, I-40 could be running into some maybe gusty winds again. But north of South Carolina, let's say, through North Carolina, Tennessee, a lot of Kentucky and Ohio, and just about almost up to the Atlantic coast, that's where we're looking at the threat of severe weather breaking out again. That comes in different shapes and forms. The intense area that went through Atlanta, and there was even a possible tornado in Greenwood County, South Carolina, with large hail earlier in Lawrence County. That energy is now moving into much of North Carolina and South Carolina. And further north, we've had a lot of heavy rain and thunder and even some wind damage in Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. And that continues to give us a severe thunderstorm watch in that area. Well, we're now looking at some pretty rough weather in Florida. At least the warnings, the flood warnings, have been reinstituted until about 8 o'clock tonight. As much as 7 inches has fallen in parts of northeast Florida. We can see what some of the damage is. Cars and houses being affected. Serious flooding with some folks being forced to evacuate their homes. Some of the cars, as you can see, totally, well, just totaled out by all that water damage that comes in some of the low-lying areas in the Jacksonville area. Places like Nassau, Putnam County, St. Johns County, Suwannee County, that's in northeastern Florida, still have flood warnings for, well, and in the aftermath of a rain that has ranged from 3 to 7 inches. We now have Buzz Bernard, our senior meteorologist, with us. And Buzz, as you were saying, that that volley of heavy rain went anywhere from northeast Florida to the Georgia coast, where there was even a tornado overnight, to some flooding in Onslow County, North Carolina.
Yeah, right up through the Carolina coast. Doppler estimates suggest a general area of 45 inches through that region, and as we've had reports from northeast Florida there, up to as much as 7 inches. So really excessive rain all along the southeastern coast of the U.S. there.
And this with some fast-moving, small-scale low-pressure systems, but now we seem to have a larger low that's taking shape.
We have this very large low that's sitting in the lower portion of the Ohio Valley right now, spinning around, actually forcing a lot of drier air up now through the southeast, but that dry air aloft also a trigger for possible severe weather.
That's right, as we saw with that tornado watch that's been issued. As we look at the satellite and radar pictures, composite in motion, we can see a lot of dynamic movement. Our low pressure system, though, is clearly visible.
Have the low spinning around up here. We also know that we have jet stream winds perhaps approaching 170 miles per hour sweeping over the area like that. Meantime, the low-level winds are coming in something like that, so good wind shear for those storms to work on.
We really can't eliminate the possibility of some severe weather breaking out in the south again. Looks like the main steady rain area and some of the energy has gone north. A lot of counties in western Virginia, now West Virginia, and Kentucky coming in with either severe thunderstorm or flash flood watches.
This is the same area that came through northern Alabama and northern Georgia this morning. That piece of energy rotating up toward West Virginia and Ohio now, triggering the threat of severe thunderstorms in those regions.
That's right. We don't want to forget Ohio, southeast Ohio, with some flood watches, warnings, and even severe thunderstorm warnings. But with all that wind pounding against the coast, we have not only fresh water falling from the sky, but the salt water is coming up, and coastal flood watch has been elevated to a warning.
Good news here is the winds will be turning around to offshore overnight, or at least parallel to the shore, and that should lessen the threat for flooding in those areas.
I'll tell you. But heavy surf advisories coming in, and that could mean more beach erosion. The gale warnings have now been extended all the way to the Canadian border, to Eastport, Maine, and all the way down to Savannah, Georgia.
Winds coming in general, 35 to 45 miles per hour out of the east and east-southeast toward the mid-Atlantic coast. We have had reports of some gusts up to 60 miles per hour, so we'll see those winds pick up steadily around, say, New York City and Long Island over the next several hours.
And looking at our map, it's no small wonder that that's happening with all the gradient that's moving into the east coast, meaning isobars stacked up, and a high to the north. There's a squeeze play on.
Arctic high up here, weakening low pressure in the Ohio Valley, good strong gradient as you mentioned.
And of course, the threat of some wintry weather moving in as snow and sleet break out in upstate New York and northern New England. That's coming up as the next round in this particular storm system. Thank you very much, Buzz Bernard, our senior meteorologist. And you'll want to stay tuned to the Weather Channel for the evolving situation. You may be threatened by severe weather in the south or by some freezing rain in the northeast. At any rate, stay tuned to the Weather Channel. When you can't, it's weather.com on your computer if you're hooked up. Now back to the studio.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Light showers linger along the west coast today while mountain